Hello guys, welcome back to Tea Time TV, where your host Tenora is spilling the tea. Okay, so this is a very juicy video that you're about to get, and it is slightly different. I got my crochet in my hand because I'm going to be tightening up my dreads as I talk to you guys. So this video is a story time, and this is a story time on how I married a narcissistic person for the second time. Okay, I won't be naming any names. I'm going to basically switch names here and there. But I won't be naming any parties' names except mine, or names that mean me absolutely nothing. I'm very loud. I'm boisterous. My voice carries. It's big. And sometimes my words get crisscrossed and I don't pronounce words right. But anyhow, that's just me. So as I get started with this video, again, I'm going to be tightening up my dreads and so forth. Okay, so let me take you guys back to the beginning on how I ended up getting married for the second time to the wrong person, and I shouldn't have gotten married. So, okay, like I said, if you guys have been rocking with me this long, I was in a previous relationship. I'm not going to even call it a relationship, but I was talking to this guy, and let's just name him Rick. And I was talking to Rick, and Rick, hold on. My phone is ringing. 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that. I had to put the video on pause. So I'm going to do this in parts. This is part one. Okay. So part one, this is basically, okay. So anyhow, so I was talking to Rick, and like I said, it's not a really relationship. We was getting to know each other. I started talking to Rick in like January of 2020. And let me backdrop and let me say this too. Let me kind of rewind just a little bit. So I was on a whole bunch of dating websites, like websites that I can't even really remember how many, but I'm going to say I was on at least 6 that I know of for sure. I was on like 6 different websites, and I was on Plenty of Fish. I was on Facebook dating. I was on Tinder. I was on Black People Meet. I was on this dating site called Bumble. Like, your girl was just doing too much. But anyhow, so I was on all these different dating websites, and this is where I met Rick. I met Rick on Plenty of Fish. So while I'm kind of, like I said, talking to Rick, getting to know Rick, a few things happened in that whole little situation that I was talking to him. So I was talking to him in January of 2020. And he ended up ghosting me somewhere like the beginning of March. So what kind of happened with that is I let him know, I'm a woman of God. I'm not trying to have sex with the whoop, yada, yada, yada. And I want to wait till marriage. He seemed like he was fine with that. He didn't have no issues with that. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's do it. Let's, see where this goes. So somewhere around, I'm going to say like maybe the end of February, we was hanging out. We was going places. He was whining and dining me, y'all. I mean, he was paying for every single thing we did. I'd have to pay a penny. He was a gentleman. He was opening and closing doors. I went to his house a couple of times to watch movies. And it was a lot of red flags in that situation because he had baby mama drama. And so I was still forcing it until he was like, look, we've been hanging out for like the past, couple of months. And I'm really struggling to, continue this. Like, I really want to be able to kiss you, hug you, hold you, like this is really starting to be a challenge for me. And so I was like, okay, well, this is what we can do. So I kind of started to lower my standards slightly with this guy. And I was like, well, if you just want to kiss, we could just kiss for 5 seconds. Or I was like, okay, we could kiss, but no tongue. And then I was like, okay, but instead of you, rubbing my butt, you could just place your hand on my thigh. Like, I was really starting to compromise. And so I remember that day that I was supposed to go hang out with him because I was at the farmer's market. It was on a Thursday. And he was like, we're going to hang out tonight. We're going to hang out tonight. And, I remember him saying, we're going to see how far you let me go. I was like, what? So I was like, okay, well, we ain't about to go that far. He was like, well, I got to go. I got to clock back into work. I'll talk to you later. So I was like, okay, cool, whatever. So when I hung up, I immediately went into prayer like, God, dang, man, like I see that I'm falling here, help me, Jesus, like help me not to fall. So he was supposed to, like I said, hang out with me that Thursday. And so he did, he did like early morning shift. Like he had to be at work at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and he will be getting off work at like maybe 5 p.m. So I already knew that we was going to be hanging out, after he got home. He showered, you know what I mean? And he got some dinner or whatever, so normally we would be hanging out probably like 7 o'clock. So 7 o'clock comes and he didn't reply. He didn't text. He didn't say anything. So I'm like, okay, what's happening here? So I text him like, what's up, boo? We gonna hang out? No reply. So in so many words, he ghosted me, basically. Let me just speed this up. He ghosted me. So now I'm in my feelings. I'm like, oh, dang. Like, I was compromising here like as best as I could, not noticing, again, too busy being fast and grown and not realizing that God answered my prayer. When I was like, God, don't let me fall, he answered my prayer. He let this man ghost me. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So 2 weeks go by, and then finally Rick texted me out the blue, and he just says my name in a text message, and he does it in all caps, to Nora. And I'm like, I reply back with a question mark. Like, what? I ain't heard from you in forever. Now, at this point, I'm still talking to random people. I'm still on different dating websites. I have yet to meet up with anybody at this point. But I'm like, you know what? You're playing games. So when I text him back and say what, he didn't reply. So I'm like, it is what it is. I'm about to just move on with my life. So I remember telling myself, you know what? I'm just going to give myself 2 more weeks. If I don't meet nobody on here, it's time for me to get off, sit down somewhere and shut up and just be quiet and just take care of my kids at this point. This is dumb. This is stupid. And I'm wasting my time. That's what I told myself. So I went back into my Tinder. And on Tinder, you have to match in order to be able to message somebody. So I go on my matches and I noticed that there was a few people that I didn't reply to, So I was like, okay, well, let me go ahead and reply to my matches or whatever. And the guy that I'm marrying, let's just name him D. So D was one of the people that was in, my non-reply, my messages where I didn't reply back to nobody. So I went ahead and I replied back and I was like, hey, I see that we match, what's up? How you doing? Whoop, 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 small talk. So I think it was maybe a few days later, he responded back to me within my 2-week notice. Remember, I was giving myself a 2-week notice. I was basically telling myself, look, if nobody, is talking or saying what I need them to say, I'm pretty much done with this thing. So I went ahead and I noticed that he had messaged me back. So I messaged him back and I was like, yeah, what's up? Holla at me. I think I gave him my number. He gave me his number. But anyhow, we exchanged numbers. So I think it was maybe about a few more days later, he ended up texting me or something, and we kind of just started talking from there. Now, I had noticed the first phone call that we had talked, he seemed to be sneaking on the phone, maybe. Like, he was like, oh, I only got 5 minutes to talk, and, I just wanted to basically hear your voice and see how you sound, because I know we was texting. And first red flag, I know we was texting, but I kind of just wanted to see, what you sound like and make sure I'm not talking to no dude. Okay, so I'm like, yeah, you talking to me. So he was like, all right, cool. So, I'll holler back at you. I'm like, all right, fine by me. So I'm just kind of like, iffy about this dude, because remember, I'm still talking to other people. So this dude ain't really important to me at this point. And so I'm still thinking about Rick. Because I'm still like, okay, I need Rick to, text me back here, and he was the only one that really caught my attention at the time. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to keep moving forward, whatever. So like I said, I'm talking to other people. So D, I think, ended up texting me again or something like that. But anyhow, we ended up on the topic of smoking and drinking. And so at the time, we still had not seen each other, even though I said I live in Victorville. He said he lived in Apple Valley. And if you know anything about the high desert, it's about maybe 15 minutes a drive from each other. So it's not very far away from each other at all. So I was like, yeah, no, I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't party. I don't club. I'm a woman of God, And I'll kind of just, let him know I'm pure. I've been pure, that kind of thing. And I'm waiting on marriage. He was like, oh, that's what's up. He was like, I need God in my life. Another red flag. Let me tell y'all something real peep here. If they ain't found Jesus before they found you, they're not trying to find him. Okay. Let me repeat that. If they haven't found Jesus before they found you, they're not trying to find him. Okay. They just trying to say what they need to say to be on the same page as you, because they want to see who you are or get to know you or whatever. So anyhow, so at the time, I'm like, oh, that's what's up. That's dope. Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm team Jesus and I'm not afraid to say it. So he was like, yeah, I only smoke, here and there. Like, I'm a social drinker. I'm a social smoker. He was like, I do smoke weed or whatever. He was like, but again, that's social. He was like, but cigarettes is my main thing. Like, I got to have a cigarette multiple times a day. And I was like, well, would you say you an addict to smoking weed? He was like, nah, I ain't no addict. He's like, I can stop that anytime. I'm like, oh, okay. He like, again, I just smoke when I'm with my cousins or with my family or whatever, that kind of thing. He was like, I ain't gonna lie. He was like, I'm unemployed right now. He was like, I'm in between jobs. He was like, I kind of lost my job. And I was like, okay, and at the time, I'm not trying to judge anybody because I didn't been in between jobs before myself. So, okay, cool. He was honest. He was upfront. He ain't got no job. All right, cool. So he was like, yeah, he was like, I lost my apartment or whatever. He was like, I had to go move in with my mom. And I was like, okay, I get it. Whoop, time is hard. Stuff is hard, that kind of thing. So he was like, yeah, but I'm going to holler back at you. I'm like, okay, again, I'm not thinking nothing of it because we're just getting to know each other. So maybe about a week goes by and he's like, yeah, I need to meet up with you. Like, I need to holler at you. And he's like, I need to make sure that I'm not being catfished. I'm like, catfish? I'm like, I am not no supermodel. I am not no Holly Berry. Like, you just got a regular female, basically. He's like, nah. I need to make sure that you really who you are. I need to make sure that I'm not being catfished. So this one particular night, I'm like, all right, cool. So I told him, I'm like, yeah, cool. So I'm like, okay, this one particular day, we plan to meet up at a local park. I'm not going to say the name of the park, but we plan to meet up at a local park. So he like, you know where this park is? I'm like, yeah, cool. So we make up a time to meet up there or whatever. And I pull up to the park. I'm closer to the park because the park is closer by my house than it is his. But I know how many minutes it would take to get from Apple Valley to the park. So I'm like, I'll give him like 25 minutes to get here. Cool. So 30 minutes go by, still no show. And I'm like, wait, what? 25 minutes more go by and I'm basically almost at an hour. I'm like, I've been waiting here for almost 45, 50 minutes for this dude. So I decided to text him. No reply. Didn't text back. So I'm like, okay, something ain't right here. I'm like, Tenora, it is what it is. Just put your car in reverse, drive up out of here. This is who he is. Now, that's another red flag, right? So I'm just like, it is what it is, and at this point now my mind goes back to Rick and I'm just like, these dudes ain't no good. This was it. My time is up. That's it. I got to get off of the dating websites. My weeks is up. So as I'm getting ready to pull out, he texts me. He's like, my bad. I had to turn around and go see what my mama wanted. She called me or whatever. He was like, and I'm still sitting here while she's giving me a lecture. I'm like, what? So I text him back. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, what does that mean? So he like, yeah, I got to listen to moms and she's going on and on about my kids and my baby mama. And you know how moms is, or whatever. So I'm going to finish talking to her and I'm going to holler back at you. So I'm like, okay, whatever at this point. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm like, it's still early, maybe I can, hang out with you later on. He like, yeah, we can hang out later on. I'm like, all right, cool. So later on comes, no word from him. And at this point, I'm already like, it is what it is. So all these red flags at this point, I'm collecting all these red flags. I'm about to go ahead and end this really quick. This is going to be part 1. But it's still, still trying to figure out, okay, is this dude, worth my time? And of course, he's not worth my time. He'd already showed me who he is, but Tenora, for some reason, just wasn't getting it. So then a couple of days go by, and he's like, my bad, let me explain what happened. So he like, yeah, mom's wanted to give me a lecture, and she just wanted to talk about my baby mama and my kids and discuss my kids and talk about my kids and, and I need to be a better daddy to them and whoop. And I'm like, hold up. So I'm like, okay. He like, yeah, she was talking to me for like 4 hours. And I'm like, what? He like, yeah, that's just, how she is. And, she just get into these modes where I got to sit there and just listen. I'm like, so I asked him, how old are you? Because at this point, I'm like, you got to be 22. You got to be 23. Like, there's no way that your mom is still giving you lectures, right? Like, what? So he's like, nah, he's like, I'm 33. Like, I'm a grown man. I'm like, okay, another red flag. All right. Mom is extremely involved. Okay. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So he like, yeah, my kids are still here. He like, but I just want to swoop up and make sure that I ain't being catfished. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I tell him, you can meet me in the front of my apartment complex. So he pulls up, he jumps out the car. The way he jumps out the car is pure thug on me. Like, he jumped out the car like he was waiting on another dude to jump out my car and we had met to fight. I'm like, what is going on? Like, so he jumps out the car and he's standing all gangster and everything. And I'm like, taken back because I'm like, this what? Like, I ain't looking for no thug. Like, that's what we not doing, girl. I'm too old. I'm like, boy, I'm too old for that. Like, I ain't even trying to even do that. So then he starts talking or whatever, and I can't really remember verbatim what he said besides a hi or whatever. So I say hi, we shake hands, and I asked him, like, you a thug? I'm like, you a gangbanger? Like, he like, nah, why you say that? I'm like, the way you jumping out your car like you about to fight or something. He like, nah, I just got to make sure that I'm good. I got to make sure I'm good. I'm meeting somebody that I ain't ever met before. It's nighttime. Like, I said, I get that, but you could have met me a few days ago in the daytime at a park that you set up. He like, yeah, I know, my bad, or whatever. He was like I told you, it was the truth. Like, my mom just wouldn't stop talking, and, she was giving me a lecture on my kids, and whoop, whoop, whoop. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, so what's up now? He like, oh, they still over there. They over there, they chilling with my mom's right now. So I just told her I'd go be out for a little bit. And I told her I'd be right back. I was like, okay. I was like, well, don't let me take up your time with your kids. That's what I don't want to do. I ain't that type of woman. So he like, nah, I just want to swoop over here and make sure I ain't being catfished. I'm like, nah, you ain't being catfished. It is what it is. It's really me. So he was like, okay, word. So all I could think about is this handshake. Now, y'all, this is where I'm about to end it after this part. I'm about to give y'all part 2 in a minute. But we shook hands. And when we shook hands, there was like this spark, like electric. Like, I don't know if you ever touched anything like in a basket or something silver and you got a shock. Like, that's what it was. And at the time, I'm like, oh, like, it's in a spark, like, oh my, I ain't never shook nobody's hand and got shocked like that, and at the time I'm like, okay, there's something there, girl, bye. That was the Holy Spirit telling me, you better run because you about to, girl, put yourself into something you don't need to be in. But anyhow, at the time I was like, okay, I felt this little shock. So what did it for me was when we, he left, he went his way. I went my way, went back into my house. He went to go back to his mama's house where he lived with his kids. And well, his kids didn't live there, but he lived with his mama. And his kids was over there visiting. So he like, I can't stop thinking about me shaking your hand. There was something strange about that. I'm like, yeah, it was. That's crazy. So he like, yeah, I'm like, that's just crazy to me. I'm like, I know. He like, that's all I could think about is that handshake. I'm like, me too. Like, that's wild. So at this point, I'm invested. Forget about Rick, because when I seen Rick, it wasn't no sparks. I didn't shake his hand, and there was no fire coming from my hands and his hand, And so we're still talking on the phone for a little bit. And then next thing you know, he's like, okay, I got to put the kids in bed. So this is where I'm going to stop, y'all. As you guys done seen in this first part 1, I done collected about 7 flags already. Okay, probably more than that. I done collected so many flags, and the story gets better and better for y'all, because I don't want y'all to make the same mistake, but it gets worse and worse for me. So stay tuned for part 2.